Well, finally, some huge news for those of you who love building games. If you're a big fan of RimWorld or Prison Architect, Evil Genius, 2-Point Hospital, 2-Point Campus, well, like I just previously mentioned, Prison Architect, that game's getting a sequel, and this is it. Now, this is our first look at some brand new footage and trailers and gameplay of this game coming out on March 26, 2024, and I couldn't really be more excited. It's a fantastic franchise, and the original game with all the DLCs offers a lot for everyone to do, almost too much stuff, as there's a lot of systems to manage, gangs, and of course the prison design itself, and many other things in the original that I hope to see in the sequel, and even more verticality, which means that, yes, we'll be able to build a much more realistic prison than ever before, and it'll function a lot more realistically, too. We'll be able to build it in multiple cities and, of course, have different types of prisons that have maximum security, super maximum security, and, of course, maybe even jails, and build the prison of your dreams, I guess, if you dream about that kind of stuff. But the game looks fantastic, and, of course, is from the original devs, which I believe this game is criminally, yes, I use that pun knowingly, criminally underrated. The original game getting a lot of great, very positive reviews and or more, and has a lot of great DLC, and now I hope to see all of what's in the original game here in the sequel. Now, I am a little bit skeptical because, of course, we had a ton of hype around games like, for example, City Skylines 2, and with all the success and winning DLCs of the first game, the second game kind of had a few things critically wrong with it. Now, even though that's maybe a smaller step forward, this seems to be a huge step forward because not only is the game getting a sequel for the first time, but also is getting a sequel that just seems to be completely different, although still maintaining all the things that we know and love from the original, like, for example, just building some basic rooms to get your power up, and then eventually moving on to build things like the canteen, prison cells, rec yard, and other things of that nature. Now, one thing that looks really good in this game is, of course, the building of the buildings, right? The name of the game is Prison Architect, so you want to spend a lot of your time laying out buildings and rooms in those buildings and all the different power networks and piping and more. And so it seems like they've given us more tools to do that. So obviously you place down a room, then you can put stairs in there, or you can decorate it and give it different paint jobs and whatnot, and then of course add rooms within that by building walls, and all within a blueprinting mode that'll show you the price of it, and so you can kind of design and modify and more than likely be able to save some of your favorite setups, like for example building a basic cell and then copy that over and over and over again, so that way you don't have to build the same prison cell multiple times. Now, verticality matters in this game, so if security or guards are up on a top floor or on a security tower looking down on a yard, they can actually see what's down below. So as you're building all these rooms, you might want to consider building catwalks and designing things a little bit differently than you ever have before, because now cones or vision sight is a thing. In other words, a guard will be able to see directly in front of them and also below them, so if they're walking on a catwalk and there seems to be a fight below them, you'll need to consider that as well. So all the building options seem to be great, being able to build one building and then on top of it, and having redundancy for certain rooms and or wings of a prison. You could have your east wing and your west wing and have them exactly the same, with a large administration building in the middle, and it looks good. Now, the prison walls, yeah, those look great, but the prison itself kind of looks a little bland. Looking at some of the footage here, it looks like everything's just concrete blocks everywhere, and there's no variety to the concrete. Like, you'd think even in a prison there would be some variety in how things were built, either a concrete prefab slab or cinder blocks, or there's many different ways to build concrete walls, and these all seem to be just kind of like a traditional cinder block wall. I do see on occasion some variety, but I want my prison to at least look nice, even though it's a prison, of course. Like, it should look like almost like an industrial factory or whatnot, but to be able to put like a blue stripe or something down the side is nice and would look cool. Now, it's really nice as well to be able to build catwalks between your buildings for guards, so that way they could easily move from one building to another, and same with the prisoners, so they don't have to go outside. And recently on this channel we played a great game called Back to the Dawn, which made me want to go back and play Prison Architect again, starting to think about all those systems of having things delivered to the prison, and also worrying about the efficiency between how far do prisoners have to walk in order to get from their cell to the canteen or the mess hall and the bathrooms, and maybe where you've set up a factory or something like that, or visitation or whatnot. And so some of those things you'd never think of now you have to think of, especially because it's easier to build second floors and whatnot, and also build connections between different areas that are cordoned off. So staff only or security only, and also, of course, your building teams will have to get to those areas as well. So if you need to quickly make something, you have to think all about that. And pretty cool, though, to be able to think outside the box and not be restricted by a 2D platform anymore. Very exciting. Now, some of these walls look good, but I hope to see a little bit more on the outside of the prison, too, although we will be looking inside the prison, looking down at all of the happenings on the inside. And obviously, you see people eating, playing chess, walking around, conversating, and I hope to see a little bit more realism with how the prisoners act. Some of these things, like, for example, a catwalk over a roadway. Yeah, not in a million years. Not even if it was the most secure catwalk in the world would anybody in a town like that feel safe. But it's your prison. You do whatever you want, and it seems to be really easy to be able to, like it shows here, remove some of the upper floors so that way prison guards can peer down into what's happening below and be able to sound the alarm. Also, it's nice to see it's kind of hard to see, but in the background you can see buildings or mountains or desert landscape. So the skybox and the world around seems to be beautiful and look good. And it also makes it seem like there might be differences to the prison that we'll have to modify, like, for example, temperatures on the inside of the prison for warmth or for cooling, depending on where we're building. And that might make some more unique challenges, too, to maybe inmate sickness. They might be able to get the flu, and, of course, that could spread easily to other inmates, so it could be interesting to see more two-point hospital type aspects being put into it, as well as, yeah, look at all the different guards we get, too. Seems like we also have to deal with water and power. That's nothing new, but it definitely does look new. I love the look of the buildings, how they're a little more playful, like in Evil Genius, and or maybe perhaps in 2 Point Hospital or 2 Point Campus, where you have some outlandish equipment. But yes, in this we'll have to not only manage the resources of the prison, but also the power and the water too. And large prisons are certainly like you're easily able to make those and manage those, but it looks like there's an incredible amount of crowding in very narrow hallways and whatnot. So I don't know, maybe that'll increase fights, maybe that'll increase people doing contraband and things like that, sharing things back and forth that they shouldn't or whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that really feels. Now, we can see footage of this all day. Here's some gameplay footage of some pipes being put down and some things covering different rooms. So you do have your main pipe and then an area around it that will then supply rooms, things like toilets and sinks with water. And that's a fun thing to do in the original game as well. So when you lay out a whole line of prison cells, you then have to supply them with water and power. Lighting is a thing in this game too. All the light bulbs and all the different types of lighting systems will need to be supplied power, as well as some other things in the prison. So it's going to be a little bit more interesting than just building rooms and other things like that, as well as research and things to like unlock. Kind of like how you have to get subsidies for things, and that's all part of the original gameplay aspect. So pretty cool to see. Lots of things being laid out here. The water grid also going for showers too, so it seems like water is a little bit more intense than power. And we might also have to manage things like sewage, although that might be a 2-in-1 pipe, where it's like a pipe, 2 pipes within a pipe, something like that. Probably not a good idea, but simplified for gameplay, and that's an interesting thing. I do also appreciate the support beams in the middle of a room, which also seems to take water and power to different floors, and also, of course, is a load-bearing pillar, which looks rather realistic and kind of cool, actually. So it looks like the art style is on point here. The characters' design look good. They look like Rayman or something like that, and almost like what I would expect from a 2D RimWorld if they ever made something like that officially. Oh yeah, lots more modifications to do for water and power. Love it. But yeah, going back to what I was saying about the look of the game, I think the art style is outstanding. The building itself looks good. Cartoony without looking, kind of not fun. It certainly seems well thought out, and is something that almost reminds me of how some of the characters look in, like, for example, Planet Coaster, or maybe even Planet Zoo, how people in some of the art style and colors look in that game as well. A little bit cartoony, a little bit fun, but also serious at the same time. And a top-down view, it looks like, as well, for laying out your prison, like how it's in Prison Architect 1. Check that out. Yeah, look at that. Copy it right over and then be able to clone it. Pretty useful. Yeah. That was a feature in the first game, too, being able to click and drag a prison cell and something like that, so it's all present here, too. and certainly easy to be able to lay out something from one prison to another. Hopefully, at least what I mean there and what I'm hoping for is the ability to take a prison and lay it out, copy some designs, and then use it on other prisons, not just the one that you're working on. Some games do allow you to copy blueprints, but you're only allowed to do it within that actual prison or building that you're working on in other games. But here it seems to be something you might be able to carry over. We have played other prison games on the channel. We've played things that look like this game as well, but we'll have to see if Prison Architect 2 can capture the actual original look and feel of the original game, which is going to be a hard thing to match. Now, I think the original game came out, it came out in 2011 from Double 11, which was the original developer, who's also working on this sequel too. So we'll have to see if this management strategy building economic 3D game, whatever words you want to throw in there, kind of feels like the same thing. Now, right now we're going to watch some actual footage of them designing the game and coming up with the transition between the 2D art of the game and into 3D. Now, what's interesting there is that a lot of people just think it's graphics based, but the amount of work that has to be considered from going to 2D sprites that can kind of just clip through each other and just almost be like paper, where you take a top-down drawing of a prison and just kind of, it's almost like you're doing some sort of puppetry, moving little pieces of paper around. In this case, it's going to be everything flipped on its head. And the developers, in this case, going back to what I mentioned about City Skylines before, are now doing a series where they're trying to showcase how difficult it is to make a game and what they're doing in this game to make it go from the original with all the DLCs to a sequel with possibly more DLCs too. It's a Paradox game after all. They're the ones publishing this, Paradox Interactive, so it's likely that we're to see much more of that. But going back to what I said about City Skylines and Paradox in general, Paradox seems to be really enjoying doing these things where they go into the office, they show the people behind the games what they do, what their specific roles are, and you'd be surprised at how much money gets put into games like this and how many different aspects are put into everything from level design to character design, sound, gameplay mechanics, storyline, and the list goes on. And this is just kind of a more, it feels like a smaller team building a building game, which usually, doesn't really have too much of a story. It's kind of your make your own thing. They give you the tools to do it, and they just make sure that the systems work, so that way there's some sort of reward for doing the things, the challenges, the kind of the loop that they've set up. And same with life, obviously. If you are building a amusement park, people will come in, they'll give you money, and then you get to build more stuff, and that's your reward, is that you get to unlock new stuff. And that should be the case here as well, that there's always something new to build, and new prisoners to bring in, and new ways to actually imprison them. Some people might be a higher security, so you have to watch out for that. But yeah, seeing how things work here, it looks like they did a really good job of the concept art of going from the original game to this sequel. And I gotta say, it certainly 110% to me looks like something out of 2 Point Campus or 2 Point Hospital, and I love that. And seeing all the different locations that we'll build in makes me also think that we're going to get some sort of a world map, like what you would get in all the games that I mentioned before. Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, Evil Genius, where you get to kind of pick and build a specific prison to whatever needs of the town or the city that they need. Maybe you're building a federal prison, maybe you're building just a small little jail, that kind of thing. And that's the type of challenge I want. Of course, we all want to build the biggest, tallest, best prison ever. How many inmates can we put into this thing? What's the absolute limit of it? But then when you're limited to a budget and you're having to house just a few really criminally insane prisoners at supermax, and you're taking on 10 of the most dangerous prisoners ever, and it needs to be super high security because these guys are smart, that's going to be something to consider. And all the different levels we could see, including, well, maybe possibly Steam Workshop support, which would also be interesting too. So it's good to see all these people. Look at all those people who are in charge of everything from, again, the character design to sounds to possibly future DLCs and community feedback too. Obviously, when this game comes out, it won't be in early access, by the way, which I think a lot of you will be excited about. Coming out, by the way, on the 26th of March, 2024, so about 7 weeks away from today, for $39.99, and then the Warden's Edition, which is $49.99, adding just some additional skins and a desk for the Warden. These devs seem to be not focusing too much on anything more than just kind of quality. It looks to be seemingly well put together and well thought out with its design. And I think the brickwork has already been laid out for the original game. So the biggest thing here is just translating everything that worked from the first game, bringing it to the second game, and then expanding upon that. But I really think maybe one of the hardest things here for City Skylines 2 and for this game and a few other games is, like for example The Sims, when they give you so much through the first game and all the DLCs, the hardest thing is they're going to have to take some things away in the sequel. Now in this case it makes sense because there's a huge leap between kind of 2D top-down and 3D, and of course that provides a lot more challenges and a lot more freedom, and so they're going to have to move some things around, but I hope to see a lot of the base things that could easily be translated from the DLCs in this new game. But of course, as always, they leave some things out because of course they want to make some more money from that, and so there's always some things that come later, but hopefully we will get things like Steam Workshop support, and it also is playable with a controller, so it could also be coming to consoles for those of you who are curious, and it could be something that eventually could expand into quote-unquote multiplayer. Not really multiplayer, but more like sharing prisons and doing some other things online through the Steam Workshop support. There's multiple ways that you could share things, I guess. I don't know. An online community is what I mean, besides just building single-player prisons. Now, the developers, here we're seeing things on like the building tools of the game and then the behind the scenes of how they came up with the game and what they wanted to do. And so the developers will continuously over the next few weeks, I think the next thing they're going to drop is on how prisoners work and like the things that they look for and how to take care of them. So obviously you want to keep them isolated. They're in prison. It's not supposed to be a nice time, but they do have certain things that they earned and deserve, like things like food and showers and an educational system or whatnot. So some of them can be rehabilitated. Not everything here is just hardened criminals all the time. Some could be just lighter crimes and whatnot that might through the story somehow be explained, where it's not everyone should be like on death row at all times. That would be kind of boring, honestly, to just have high security all the time. But dealing with like a lower security on a budget would be much more interesting to me, to be able to see multiple ranges of things. And that's what's exciting about all these other building games, is that we all want to again build a huge big base and underground lair or big theme park, but it's also cool when you have to do things on a budget, and that's more realistic to real life. And so that's going to be something I really want to continuously see throughout the game. So previously we saw how to build a prison in Prison Architect, and now we're going to take a look at kind of more details on the rooms, and then eventually on how prisoners will work in those rooms or live in those rooms or what they'll use those rooms for. So it's going to be something that defines this game every, I guess, maybe week until the release. Remember, we're about almost 2 months away. It's March 26th that it's releasing, so we've got all of February and most of March to get through. So it's going to be quite some time. But you can see all the different things that you can kind of unlock or go down. Previously there were contracts and things that you could take on to unlock additional money and subsidies and things like that. And the traditional system of starting your prison from nothing, having a few drop-off zones for supplies, and then your building crews showing up and putting down all the foundations are here. So I like the fact that the original premise is here, and it looks really familiar. Like, it looks like you're actually playing the first game, and it like in my mind it's a perfect translation so far. They've done a good job of making it look like the first game, but a 3D version of that and not something completely different, which I was worried about. When I saw Prison Architect 2 in the trailer, I was like, oh no. This ain't, no. But yep, the more I see actual gameplay, the more I'm confident on that. That is going to be more like the first game, and really, I think that's a good thing. The first game was so good, but again, going back to what I said about, City Skylines, we'll see. But it looks like, at least for a game where you're managing a prison, what could go wrong, right? Yeah, totally nothing could go wrong at all. Yeah, no, everything's going to go swimmingly and perfect, both in the game and also in our prisons too. So there's many things that could go wrong here, but the fact that they're not releasing into early access is rather, I'm confident about that, because they haven't really shown anything here that's kind of questionable or a lot of fluff with a lot of there's not a lot of hype here. It's just basically like, here, you're building this 8x4 square, and you can put these things in it, We've seen games like this before, and I don't think any of us can get enough of them. It's so fun to be able to manage casinos and restaurants and prisons and amusement parks, and these are the types of games that I'm going to be playing till the end of time. Seriously, there's really not much that you can do to improve upon these games, but there is a lot you could do to, like expand upon what you do. Like, for example, aircraft carrier games, whatnot. Yeah, like I played aircraft carrier management games and U-boat simulators before, where you're not necessarily building, but maybe perhaps upgrading the different rooms and sections and stations in those and managing the crew. And that seems to be something that might be important in this game too, is not only managing the prisoners, but also the guards themselves, the staff, getting them training and keeping them happy and building staff rooms. But more importantly, this game has made me want to go back and play the original game as well, where some of my favorite DLCs were the Gangs DLC, and then the Going Green one, and then something else like Island Bound, or there's some other DLCs, and they're all really great. And Prison Architect's a game where when it dropped, it was like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like Prison, RimWorld, great. And then it expanded into even much more than that, and it was all good. But yeah, here's a scene of somebody looking down upon the prisoners there you just saw for a moment. And that verticality and maybe different security systems will be all in place here. We've seen metal detectors and cameras, and we've seen different textures for the ground and different amenities for the prisoners, like phones and the infirmary and the rec hall, or like the I guess the recreation yard, but also maybe some indoor stuff too for them if it's a colder climate. But I want to see a lot more different things that we can get in this game in terms of like having to deal with different challenges, like different landscapes, different climates, different clientele, for lack of a different term, you know. But I do appreciate the fact that like we might be able to rehabilitate people and send them back out into the world, and or that this game right from the beginning in the original went hard with the whole death row thing. But also it'd be cool to see traps and things like that too, maybe gun turrets and some wacky stuff. There is some more advanced tech in the original game as well, like high-tech prisons and whatnot, so it'll be cool if they have all sorts of different things like drones and, I don't know, prison bots or something like that. I don't know, go wacky with it. Like eventually start out realistic and normal for the most part, and then go into some craziness and just have all sorts of weird stuff going on. Why not? It's your game, so if you don't want to play in those modes, you just don't. But it's always cool to see them explore. Like, for example, Stranded Alien Dawn going into a 3D RimWorld aspect as well, having eventually like Star Wars level drones and laser swords and stuff like that. So always happy to see it. And going back to what I mentioned about Back to the Dawn, that game made me want to play Prison Architect again, but yeah, seeing this game now I just want to play this one because everything looks so good, and like The Sims, like all the different chairs you can put down and things like that just to decorate a staff room seems like a lot of fun. It's a prison game, and prison ain't, you know, a happy place, but it is certainly something that has captivated players, including myself, to be able to just see how a prison operates, budgeting, building. Of course, this is an architect game. I mentioned it before. We saw pipes being laid out for just water and electrical lines for all the different lighting in the prison, and maybe backup generators and stuff like that. You don't want the raptors to get out of the raptor enclosure. You know, you saw what happened in that Prison Break movie. But yeah, so all in all, Prison Architect 2 looks promising, very exciting, and I really want to say that a game that was good is getting better. You know, a sequel coming out that's just going to absolutely blow up. I wanted that so bad for City Skylines 2, and I was convinced, and it fell certainly short of what everybody was hoping for, although there was a lot of good stuff there. But I'm hoping for Prison Architect 2 to do all the great things that the original game did, and then even better. But it is certainly hard to improve from time to time, especially when it's good, and a winner, and a banger. Alright everyone, well let me know what you think about the game down below in the comments section. Is this a game you would play? Let me know. If on launch day for $39.99 on PC on March 26th, is this a game you'd buy on Steam and play day one? Would you wait for a sale? Are you not interested? Or at least will you go back and play the first game, which might actually be on sale considering all the news for the second game? Well, that's all the time I have here for today for Prison Architect 2. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thanks for leaving comments. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Leave a like, and I will see you all in the future for more Prison Architect fun here on the channel. It certainly is a good time. and I'll see you in due time. Due time. You get it? Prison. Okay, great. I'll see you all next time. Bye.